Senator Zeldin, thanks for your time tonight.
Well, thank you, Nick.
So let's talk about this so-called award that you received from the Environmental Advocates of New York and ELS. They say that you sponsored one of the, quote, dirtiest pieces of legislation, which was trying to seek a repeal of the MTA payroll tax. But obviously it's a little bit more complicated than that, especially for your district, for suburban Senate districts in and around New York City, because the MTA payroll tax is one that has decided elections and nearly decided another election out in Westchester County.
Well, not only politically, it's also has a huge impact on families, employers. Everyone's getting hit by it. Everyone's very proud of the fact that the Senate Republicans are pushing so hard to get the payroll tax repealed. It's really the impact on people's lives that inspire us the most. It's the political impact on elections. As long as we're doing the right thing in between elections, it's not as much of an issue come campaign time, and we're doing the right thing with this bill. As far as the award, it seems to be a self-contradiction exercise. From one point, they're criticizing half of the bill, saying that it takes away funding from the MTA, and that's anti-environment, and then criticizing the other half of the bill, saying that gives money to the MTA, and that's anti-environment. So, only in Albany do you get logic like this. You take the award in stride, but if this is the leadership that gets me an award like this, I look forward to defending my title in 2012.
But they also take issue with a measure, I believe it was a push that you were behind, that they say is to divert funds meant for sewage infrastructure improvements. What's your response to that?
Yeah, there's a whole lot of spin. The fact is, we amended our bill once, and anyone that has any ideas of how to improve the efficiency of the MTA's finances and management should put forth their plan. Sitting in the nosebleed seats and throwing grenades against our efforts to repeal this payroll tax is probably just as ill-conceived and ill-advised as the idea of imposing it in the first place. So, with regards to this bill, my primary objective here is to repeal the payroll tax. Our efforts with regards to providing new funds to the MTA is really our best effort in showing our commitment to help the MTA sustain itself and its finances after the tax is repealed. So, I'm definitely open to their ideas as to other sources of funds, but the fact is, money invested in mass transit can't possibly be argued as anti-environment, and that's really where the self-contradiction is pretty obvious.
And I know we've talked about this before, but just tell us, where would this money come from, specifically talking about diverting funds for sewer infrastructure improvements, things like that? If the payroll tax is repealed, and that's a big if at this point, we're not certain if the Assembly would go along with it. They did not last time around. Where would this money come from? Because I think there was a report out from the Comptroller's office earlier this year that showed how the MTA does have some serious financial problems that continue.
No question, and the Comptroller has done a lot of audits, and every time the Comptroller does an audit, he uncovers additional ways for the MTA to save money. One audit, for example, with regards to the personal and miscellaneous service contract showed expenses nearly tripling from 2006 to 2008. There's obviously money to be saved with real estate, excessive overtime abuse. Their cash and investment float is in the billions. There is over 10,000 managers and supervisors for their 66,000 employees. That's pretty top-heavy. They have numerous employees that are making over $200,000 each. And I don't know if the MTA's entire bureaucracy should be all making more money than the governor of the state of New York. So there are a lot of ways that the MTA can save money, and I continue to advocate, and I know that many of my colleagues do as well, for a thorough top-down forensic audit. Every time the Comptroller's done one of his audits, as you asked, in your question, you're right. There's money to be saved. These audits are productive. Who knows how much more money can be saved by the MTA? Well, additionally, we have. Go ahead, Nick.
Oh, sure. Just, it seems like you're suggesting, though, that, finding efficiencies, looking for a forensic audit of the MTA, these are long-term savings. And certainly I'm not devaluing long-term savings for something from the MTA, but if you repeal the payroll tax, you immediately lose that revenue. Where would you come up with the immediate revenue to shore up to shore up the loss of that tax?
Yeah, and that's the really the all the hard work of putting our legislation together. Is we developed this three-part phase-out. One part has an immediate repeal for small businesses, those with 25 employees or less, all public and non-public schools. For the 7 counties outside of New York City, there's a phase-out over the course of 3 years, so that by the end of 2013 it would be fully repealed, and a phase down for the 5 counties within New York City. So I understand that there would be a drastic immediate impact if we fully repealed the payroll tax tomorrow. There certainly wouldn't be the political will, regardless, inside Albany to get that done. So we put together this bill after several months of hearings, studying the consolidated balance sheets, looking at their budget, talking to MTA officials, and and here we are today at this point with this piece of legislation that the Senate passed with bipartisan support in the middle of June, that the Assembly should allow a vote on, and the governor should get behind. The governor who has expressed his criticism of the payroll tax, and he's right for doing so. Right now, he's hugely popular in New York State, and he has the political muscle to get this done as well. So, so hopefully, with the governor's leadership and Assembly Speaker's cooperation, this effort from the Senate Republicans will come to fruition. But, it's really important that the governor gets involved as well.
How important is it for you to get the payroll tax repealed by the 2012 elections? I mean, I don't want to suggest that this is a political issue, but it was a political issue in 2010 when you ran against Brian Foley, when Jack Martins ran against Craig Johnson, when Bob Cohen ran against Susie Oppenheimer, and in part this payroll tax was a deciding factor in those elections. How important is it for your constituents to not only see that you're working on getting this passed, but that you're going to be effective in getting it passed?
Well, my constituents know that I spend as much time as possible fighting for this repeal. That's why we introduced the legislation at the beginning of June. We were successful in getting the state Senate to pass the legislation in June. And, I'm not the process in Albany. I'm part of the process. I wasn't running for Senate, Assembly, and Governor at the same time. The residents of my particular district voted to put me into office to fight for this repeal in the state Senate, and that's what I've done and will continue to do. And voters all across the 12-county MTA region need to hold the Assembly Democratic leadership's feet to the fire. They need to contact the governor to express their criticism. I mean, this legislation has gotten wide-range support. It's been endorsed by the New York State School Boards Association, NFIB, the National Federation of Independent Businesses, the Business Council of New York, the New York Farm Bureau. The list goes on and on. New Yorkers want this tax repealed. It's a bad economy. We need to be putting people to work. And a job-killing tax created in 2009 in a bad economy was a bad idea then. It's a bad idea now. And I think it's important for the Democrats to get on board and get behind this.
Okay, Senator, just to switch gears a little bit, there's been talk about a new chairman at the MTA. A few names have been floated out there. The governor was asked about this. He says an announcement's going to be coming soon. First, what have you heard about a new leader at the MTA? And just generally, what sort of person would you like to see fill that role?
Well, I know that the governor has been working very hard. His team's been working very hard to select a new chairman. I look forward to the nominee. I look forward to getting behind that nominee fully as a member of the Transportation Committee specifically. I'm looking for a nominee that is willing to tackle the fact that we have an authority that should be self-sustaining and instead keeps looking for bailouts from Albany because he can't seem to manage its finances. It's important that elected officials, when we get into office, that we are good stewards of taxpayer dollars, just as if it was our own money. And the MTA continues to waste a lot of money. I commend Chairman Walder for his successes during his time in office. It would have been, I hope that this next chairman is going to be there for a few years and has the will and the intestinal fortitude and just the vision to bring the MTA to better days, because what is the wrong answer is just continuing to run the MTA into the ground and putting your hand out to Albany looking for a bailout. Should the Senate return, if there's a nominee, should the Senate return to take that nominee up by the end of the year, or can this wait until January? Well, first off, we need to get the nominee before any decision like that is being made. Senate Majority Leader Dean Skelos and Tom Libous. We have great leadership in the Senate Republican Conference right now, and I defer to them in making that in that decision as far as when to come back. But I don't know how any decision can be made specifically about a return date until the governor announces his intention and what he'd like to see.
Okay, Senator Lee Zeldin, thanks for sharing your views with us tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Nick.